Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the Shaman's Way podcast. This was an unscheduled addition to the podcast, which is why it's only 1 week after the last one instead of every 2 weeks. This was the story that Kriket shared at her Waking the Bear ceremony, and it went over very well, so we thought we would record it here and share it with everyone and see what you all think out there. If you do enjoy it, please do let us know. That will let us know whether or not we should do more of these or perhaps create another podcast channel with just adding some stories. And we would be more than happy to do that if it's well received. Also, I will say, if you go to shamansway.net and go to the podcast, you can find this for download without my preamble or the outtakes at the end, and just have the pure story. So head on over there if you're interested in that. Without further ado, though, let's get on with the story.
I'd like to present to you the story, The Devil with the Three Golden Hairs, and this is a German folk tale. My name is Kriket, and I hope you enjoy the story. A long time ago, but, it could have been just yesterday. Time is not really linear. It's kind of a circle. So, it could have been a long time ago. But, so anyway, let's go with it. That was a long time ago. So a long time ago in a faraway place, which could have been close, but I digress. Let me get to my story. The story of the devil with the three golden hairs. A very poor couple gave birth to a child, and the child was born with a cowl upon its face. And the villagers, the midwife, was excited to see this child with a cowl upon its face, for any child born this way would undertake whatever is undertaken will turn out well. And it was prophesied when he was born that in his 14th year he would marry the daughter of the king. The king came upon this town, and no one knew that he was the king. And he bade to the good people of the town, "What news have you?" And the townspeople rejoiced and said, "Oh, we have had a child of good fortune born unto this town. And this child was born with a cowl upon its face, and it was even said, when this boy turns 14, he will marry the daughter of the king." Well, the king's heart was a hardened heart, and he was not going to have an undesired suitor for his daughter. So he asked, "Where is this house of these lovely people who gave born to the child of good fortune?" And the villagers happily sent the king on to this poor couple. And the king offered them a great deal of money, gold, for their child. Could have been 5 gold pieces. Who knows what a lot of money is to a person in Germany in a land far, far away from a time divulged. Not quite from this time, but of another time. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the story. So, the king offers a lot of gold to this young couple, and the couple goes, no, we love our child, And he says, but I will give it a much better life. And they think, well, we have given born to a child of good fortune, and whatever it will undertake will turn out well. So they agreed. And the king rode off and had the baby in a box and rode down the road until he found a place of deep water, and he threw that box in the deep water. And the river flowed and flowed and flowed right into a mill dam, and wouldn't you know, it was only 2 short miles from the king's main city. And so protected was this child of good fortune that when the king threw this box into the water, well, not only did it not sink, it did not even get 1 bit of water inside. And a mill foreman looks down into the water, and he saw this box. He thought, this must be a treasure. And long was his hook that went down into the water, and up he pulled it, took it down, thinking, I have found treasure. And he opened up this box, and there before him was a lively, lovely young baby. Alas, but no treasure to the miller foreman. However, he knew that the miller and his wife had no children, so he took what he thought was treasure and turned it to the parents as the treasure that they would seek. Oh, so happy for this foundling child they had, and they raised him in all good manners. And a storm occurred 14 years later, wouldn't you know? And the king was forced to come to the mill, wouldn't you know? And he spies this 14-year-old boy and inquires to the miller and his wife about this son of theirs. And they say, no, he's not a son. He is our foundling. He came to the river to us 14 years ago. The king sighed a sigh, for his hardened heart had not opened any more in the last 14 years, and here before him was this undesired suitor yet again. No way was he going to be thwarted from this. So what he intends to do is, may I ask your son to carry a letter to the queen for 2 gold coins? Oh, yes. So the miller's boy, the child of good fortune, takes this letter, and they bade him wait. And the king wrote a letter to the queen. And wouldn't you know what it said is, as soon as this boy arrives, you must kill him, bury the body, and do it before I get back. And he folded it up and he gave it to the child. And the boy wandered down the road, and came into a dark forest, and became nighttime, and all he could see in front of him was this little tiny light, and he put 1 foot in front of the other foot, in front of the other foot, in this cold, dark forest, until he came to what would be a most dilapidated cottage. But who cared? It was a cottage. And he stood there at the doorway. The old woman who was alone in this place in front of the fire was startled to see a young man at her window. And she bade him into the house, and in he came, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I have come a long way. I got lost. I have to go deliver this letter to the queen." And the old lady said, "Well, you can't stay here. This is a den of thieves. When they come in, they'll surely murder you." And the child of good fortune said, "I am not afraid. Let them come. I am too tired to go any further." And he laid himself upon the bench and soundly fell asleep. And of course, not long after, came the den of thieves, those wonderful men of hardness and horror and all things ick came in and were mad at the old woman. "What have you done letting this boy?" And she said, "Whoa, this boy has a letter to take to the queen." And he was so tired he fell asleep. And I'm sure thieves were of good heart when they decided to open up that letter and see what it was. I'm sure they meant no ill intent, and I'm sure they weren't thinking that maybe it was a letter of money. However, what they read made them have pity in their hearts. And the leader ripped up that letter, threw it in the fireplace, and wrote another letter that said, "Upon this boy's arrival, you shall prepare a wedding feast and marry him to my daughter," and folded it up and slipped it into his pocket. And in the morning they awoke, and he was refreshed, and they let him know the exact directions to the castle to take his letter to the queen. So the young boy wandered off, and sure enough came to the castle and gave the queen the letter. And as soon as she read it, she prepared the most beautiful wedding feast. He was a handsome boy. He was a good boy, well-mannered, and of course she would be happy to have him for a son-in-law. And the daughter was quite impressed to see this lovely young man walk into her home. And sooner than later, they were married, and a little bit later, the king came home and was furious. The prophecy had come true, and he said to his wife, "What have you done? That was not what is in my letter." And she said, "No," and she got the letter, and she gave it to him. He read it, and he went storming to the young boy, and he said, "What have you done? Why did you change this letter?" And the young boy said, "I fell asleep in the forest. That's probably what happened. It got changed when I was sleeping in the forest." The king was having none of it, and he said, "Anyone who marries my daughter has to do one deed. They have to go to hell and pick 3 golden hairs off the devil's head. Then, and only then, when they bring those golden hairs back to me, can they have my daughter." The child of good fortune said, "Well, I will go. I am not afraid. I will not lose my wife. I will not lose this beautiful life I have come." And out the door he went. Walking down the road, he came to a large town. And in this large town, there was a gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper stopped him and said, "What is your trade and what do you know?" And the young boy replies, "I know everything." "Well, then do us a favor and tell us why the fountain in the marketplace no longer has wine flowing from it, not even water. It is dry." And the child of good fortune said, "That you shall know. Only wait until I get back." And further he went until he came to another gatekeeper in another large town. And the gatekeeper said to him, "What is your trade and what do you know?" And the young boy replied, "I know everything." "Ah, then do a favor for me and tell me why the tree in the center of the town that bears golden apples has no golden apples, let alone no leaf." And the young boy replied, "That you shall know. Only wait until I get back." And he trundled on. He came to a wide river, and the ferryman picked him up. And he said, "What is your trade, and what do you know?" And the young boy replied again, "I know everything." "Then do me a favor and tell me why it is that I am always rowing back and forth and never set free." And when they got across to the other side, he said to him, "That you shall know, only wait until I get back." And he ran until he found the sooty and the dark gates of hell. And he wandered through the dark gates of hell, and wouldn't you know that the devil was not home, but his grandmother was, and she didn't look quite so bad. The grandmother said, "What are you doing here?" So the young boy replied to her with all earnesty, "I have come to take 3 golden hairs off the devil's head, or my wife will be lost to me." And the grandmother said, "Well, that is a mighty big thing. But if the devil knows you're here, there will be nothing but trouble." She shrinks him down into an ant, and she puts him up into the folds of her dress. And she said, "Are you okay in there?" And he replied, "Yes, but I have 3 questions that I need to know." "Okay, tell me the questions." "Why is it that the fountain in the market no longer has wine, not even water flowing from it? Why does the tree that has the golden apples not have any fruit to bear, let alone leaves on the tree? And why is it the ferryman has to row back and forth and never be set free?" The grandmother replied, "Oh, that's a lot of questions and deep questions. Don't say a word, be absolutely silent, and listen to the answers that the devil gives you." And he, in silence, replied, "Yes." And the devil came in shortly later, and he could smell that the air had human ick scent, and he's roaring around the house, "Where's the human? Where's the human?" ripping up the counters and throwing things under, and the grandmother's in the middle of the room. "What are you doing? You always have human smell in your nose. You're messing up my house. I just got everything put back together. Now sit down and eat." And being a dutiful grandson, he did just that. And he's eating away, and finally he gets tired, and he goes to lay on a bench, and he lays his head on his grandmother's lap. And he asks her if she would delouse him. So she took her fingernails and scratched through his hair, and slowly but surely she relaxed the devil. And the devil fell asleep and breathed heavily and snored, and all of a sudden, black! And the devil gets up. "Oh, what have you done?" "Oh, I had a bad dream and I grabbed your hair." "Well, what was your dream then?" said the devil. "Well, I dreamt that there was a town with a fountain in the marketplace that used to flow with wine and now doesn't even flow with water." Ho, ho! If only they knew that at the bottom of the well, underneath the stone, was a toad. And if they got the toad out and they killed it, then the water will flow, the wine will flow. Oh, thank you. And he lays back down. And she starts to delouse his hair even more and slowly puts him to sleep again, and he starts to snore. Louder, this time loud enough that he would shake and rattle the windows in the house of hell. And pluck! Oh, what have you done now? Why have you done? I had a bad dream and I pulled your hair. Oh, what was your dream then? I dreamt that there was a town that had a tree that had the golden fruit, and right now it cannot bear the fruit or grow the fruit and cannot even bear a leaf. The devil says, well, what they don't know is that there is a mouse gnawing at the roots of the tree. And if they don't get there soon, that tree will die. Oh, okay. And he said, now, old woman, I'm mighty tired, and I'm tired of your bad dreams. And if you do this one more time, I'm going to get up and I'm going to box your ears. Oh, no, come, lay down. And slowly, she's delousing his hair, and soon he's sound asleep again. Pluck! Storming mad, he gets up. What have you done? I'm sorry, I can't control bad dreams. And he was quite curious, and he said, well, what was your dream? A ferryman asked me why he has to row back and forth and never get a break. What a stupid fool. All he has to do the next time somebody gets into his boat is hand the oar to them and run off. He'll be free. Ah, thank you. He laid down, and finally the whole house slept. In the morning, the devil got up and went out to go do whatever devil business the devil does. I don't even know what the devil does. So, and I don't know when he got there because that's a whole other story. And we are not going there today. But, so, the devil is gone. And the grandmother takes the ant out of her dress and puts it on the floor and rose it up to the child of good fortune and said, did you get the answers to your questions? Yes, I did. Thank you, grandmother. I really appreciate your help, grandmother. And off he goes, and he gets into the boat, and he knows the ferryman is expecting an answer. And the ferryman says, well, what is my answer? I will tell you when we get across the river. So he gets across the river, and he jumps out of the boat, and he turns around, and he says, the next person that comes to ask you to row them to the other side, you put the oar in their hand, and you are set free. And he trundles off, and he gets to the town that has the golden apples that will not grow, and the golden tree that does not even have a leaf. And they said, wait, you said you had an answer. And he said, and I do. You will find a mouse gnawing at the roots of your tree, and you better get it quick or your tree will die. They were so overjoyed that they gave the young lad 2 asses loaded with gold, and they followed after him. And the child of good fortune goes on and on and on and on until he comes again to the first gatekeeper that he met. And the gatekeeper knew that he had an answer for him. And he said, yes, at the bottom of the well is a big rock, and underneath that rock is a toad. And if you kill the toad, then the wine will start to flow from the well in the center of the marketplace. And they were so overjoyed that they gave him 2 asses laden with gold and sent him on his way. And he comes home to his kingdom, and his princess is very happy to see him. And the king is shocked, but also incredibly greedy, and sees the young lad come in with 4 asses, 2 asses laden with 4 sides of gold, and wonders how he got it. So he says to him, tell me how you got this gold, after the young boy had put the 3 golden hairs of the devil into his hand and Overjoyed, the king said, son-in-law, son-in-law, how did you get this gold? And the son-in-law says, well, you just go down the road to the boat, you get in the boat, and the other side, the sand is gold. And I can take as much as I want. Yes, you can take as much as you want. Fill your sacks full. So off the king went, and into the boat he went, and the ferryman takes him across, and as he asks, where do I go from here? He puts the oar into his hand, and the ferryman jumps out of the boat. And the king may still be rowing that boat backwards and forwards and forwards and backwards, wondering why he won't be set free, and no one asking to have him forgiven. So if you want to end the story there, you can. But for a few minutes, I'm just going to discuss and talk about some of the symbolism in the story. If we look at this as a hero story, we know that this is a hero story in the physical form and not in the spiritual form. Most hero stories come in one or the other ways. And this is the story of a child of good fortune, that inner hero within us that is born of good things. So this story is about that child within us that is born that can do no wrong. That child within us that is born and done of good fortune. The caul, C-A-U-L, is a covering born sometimes on the face of the child. And some midwives would call this good fortune, and some midwives would have other ways of describing what it was. That's what the caul is. The caul is also in this story used to represent a veil between the worlds. When the king takes him and puts him into a box and throws him into the deep water, he is being bathed in his own mercy. He is being bathed in the mercy of Psyche. So Psyche is that water. Psyche is that river that flows that young child. And that child represents that youth that is indestructible, that youth that is indomitable, that youth that all resides within us. And then when we come to the mill, the things that grind. And child is not a son, but a foundling. So here we have the symbolism of moving away. So we have that young boy in the process of moving away from the parent because he is a foundling, not of us. So instead, a treasure for us. And treasures we know have to leave us. So this is a treasure to his parents. So he moves off into the forest, and the forest is a place that is symbolism of the hidden things, the things of the unconscious, the things of the animalistic world, the psyche, the shadows. So this young child of good fortune even can go within the depths of his own shadow, his own wisdom, to still be safe and to change his destiny. Again, another part of the hero. The hero walks through the darkness, finds a small light, and things change for it. Then he comes into the joyous wedding, the celebration. So the joining of the masculine and the feminine. So coming into that first initiation, that first initiatory rite. And before he can cross into manhood, the hero's journey is involving 3 separate questions. So we first have a question of wine, which is an old analogy to if we share wine, we are of the same blood. Because when we drink wine, the blood is heated up and we are both heated at the same time. And that was part of the process of sharing wine at the dinner table, where when company came, you would give wine because that was the communion you had with each other. So that is the story of the wine. Why is there wine in the story? It is that communion between people. It is that community. So the first step of the foundling, the child that has grown away, the first step is to find family communion. So then the second part of the journey is that journey of the golden apple. And the golden apple is the alchemy of the things which can sustain us. So I kind of think that the growing of that everlasting tree and the mouse gnawing on the roots is really kind of, for me, kind of Germany. Maybe, I'm not certain what kind of world tree myth that they would have. I know that the Norse have Yggdrasil, the world tree. So I believe there is a symbolism in that. So he is coming into that earth element, that aspect of alchemy, changing what he sees into something that can be used. So that alchemy in himself, when they ask him, what is your trade? What do you do? And he says, I know everything, but wait, I'll get back, because he's on a journey to find wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come. You have to work through wisdom, and you have to gain knowledge in order to get the wisdom. And in the third, he is rowing across. This is initiatory. This is a threshold. The water is always a threshold from life into death. We have many mythologies and stories that talk about the Chiron, and talks about the river Styx. So we have lots of references deep embedded in our psyche of that transitional place. And hell, this is a Christian time, but hell is also that place where you find your deepest self. And then we have three. The number 3 is incredibly important throughout the story, because 3 is the first time of creation. It is also the very first geometrical symbol. It is a triangle. From 0, we go to 1, which is the expression of self, 2, the expression of duality, and you come across the bottom, and it is 3, which is the expression of masculine and feminine coming together. So where he has union of the masculine and the feminine, he returns with the 3 golden hairs. He returns with the alchemy that allows him to change, gives it to the ogre, which in this case is the king, which is delightful for me, because usually it's the queen. So it's delightful to see it from, that there can also be bad patriarchs. And although they're really weak women in that they'll just do whatever the father says, and the girl is happy to be married at 14, and but that's a whole other story. This isn't this story. So ultimately, it is a hero's journey. It is the journey of the alchemy of the soul. It is that journey of coming home. And when he came home different. And that is the hero's journey, is embarking in this form, foundling, detached, and returning in the form of the self, or returning closer to home of self. So that's the story of the hero's journey. So thank you for listening further if you have, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. I would like to add more stories. And if that is something that is of interest to you, please let me know, drop me a line, and let me know whether or not you liked it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your kind attention. This is Kriket, and I shared with you the story of the devil with the 3 golden hairs.
Hello everyone, Doug here again, and I hope you guys enjoyed that story as much as I have. If you did, it would really be a huge help for us if you go over to iTunes and give us a good rating and some positive feedback. It really does help us get the word out and share what we love to share. We will have another podcast episode 1 week from now, keeping the regular series every 2 weeks, and that one will be on 11 tips and tricks to help you with your journeying. So hopefully we see you then, and take care.